And I'm going to mention it's Happy Chinese New Year today. Welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Caroline Karimi Govanlu and I will be chairing the Planning Committee meeting today. The officers presenting today are Glenn Beaumont, Andrew Parnell and Sarah Everard. And we also have Ben Burgess, Assistant Director of Planning, and Lucy Palmer, Democratic Services, on the top table. We are not expecting a fire drill today, but if the alarm does sound, the fire exits are clearly signed in green. This meeting is being live streamed. Members of the public are welcome to film proceedings as long as they are not disruptive to the conduct of the meeting. If anyone wishes to film record this meeting, please identify yourselves now. Thank you. Please can you ensure your mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent. Councillors, please do not use your mobile phone whilst the committee is in session. We will have comfort breaks at various times throughout the meeting if needed. If you must use your mobile, then please leave the room. However, you will appreciate that this could result in you not being able to vote on the matter under discussion at the time you leave the room. The order of business is set out as on the agenda. Members of the public can only speak if prior arrangements have been made in accordance with the Council scheme of public speaking. The time allocated is a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker parish council, with a maximum of 15 minutes per category. Only people who have registered to speak will be able to address the committee. The order will be as follows. The planning officer will present the application. Public speakers will then be asked to present their case, followed by questions from members of the committee to clarify something the speaker has said and not to invite the speaker to put further points across. The order of public speaking is Parish Town Council first, followed by objectors and finally supporters. Council members who are not members of this committee will then be invited to speak for the allocated time of a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker, but I note we haven't got any council members here today. The committee will then discuss and determine the application. Finally, there is no provision for members of the public to circulate documents, photographs at the meeting. Are there any questions before I open the meeting? No, thank you. Declarations of interest. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say the Aylsham application is within the watershed catchment of the Broads IDB area, and I'm a board member. And also I have been previously a member of the governance board for Broadland Country Park, and I have been involved in bringing the country park forward.
I think we also would like to say we've all been given one of these. So we declare we have been given these, and also an email regarding the application. Nigel.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Laming and Councillor Tipple.
Right, minutes of the last meeting on the 4th of December. Are you happy to confirm that the minutes are correct? Yes, yep. And any matters arising from those minutes? No? Thank you very much. Right, we'll go straight on to the applications. We have the Aylsham application first, and Glenn Beaumont is presenting. Over to you, Glenn.
Oh, here he is. I was pressing the wrong button. Morning all, thank you Chair. First item before you is an application for 242 dwellings and associated works and a primary school in Aylsham. Application is before you at the request of Councillors Riley and Catchpole for the reasons set out in the report. Before we get into the meat of the application, I just want to draw your attention to the update sheet which you've got in front of you hopefully. Sets out the comments from both the Environmental Quality Officer and our own ecologist, both of whom are now content with the submitted information, and I suggest that the recommendation is updated to reflect their comments. A couple of other updates and bits of clarification as well, but they're in front of you, so I'm not going to dwell too much of them. So the key considerations are set out in section 5.1 of the report, and since there are quite a few, I'm not going to list them now, but I will touch upon them throughout the course of this presentation. So by way of context, application site is on the eastern side of Aylsham. clearly shown in red on the screen in front of you. You've got the Bure Valley Path to the south, which continues sort of east to west or to southeast. A140, which loops around the eastern boundary of the site. Residential development to the south and west, and partly to the north. Aylsham Recreation Ground, where the cursor is where the cursor is hovering in black on your screen, and a relatively modern housing estate developed by Barrett David Wilson within the last 10 years. Within the last 10 years to the north as well. Extract from the GNLP relative to the site location plan that was submitted with the application. GNLP sets out a range of criteria for this allocation, which is listed in your committee report as well. But broadly speaking, the application is in full accordance with that allocation. So the general principle of development is acceptable in this instance. So we're looking at whether it complies with the other criteria and other relevant planning considerations as well, which are also set out in the report. Looking at the colour layout, here's the sort of the house-shaped parcel of land for the school that I referred to in the report to the south. Open space, U-shape at the northern end of the site. And then in my report, I refer to a sort of slightly more formal arrangement of the layout on the eastern side of the site. Clear blocks, street hierarchy of streets, and then on the left-hand side or the western side of the site, we've got a slightly looser feel to the pattern of development as well. Agle Gardens, this rectangular section here, and then Rippingall Road to the west, which is also referred to. And then there's the pedestrian walkway linking to Borough Road to the northwest corner as well. Also got some connections to the southeast, to the footpath on the A140, which ultimately crosses the A140 on the Bure Valley Path, and then you can just see sort of snaking along the southern boundary the Bure Valley Path as well. So the housing mix plan, just by way of saying what I see on the screen in front of me, you've got the blues are the 4 beds, the browns are the 1 beds, the yellows are the 2 bed, and the greens are the 3 bed. So you can see from looking at it, it's predominantly 2 and 3 bed units. And then there's 4 single-storey units on the left or the western side of the site as well. Affordable housing, this may need a bit of explanation, spread throughout the site. So the green are the shared ownership, so we've got a few there, and then adjacent to the southern boundary as well. And the red dots are the affordable rental units. So it's fully compliant. We've got 80 affordable units being provided, which is 33%, and that's in accordance with the requirements of the GNLP. So the developer is meeting their obligations in that respect. Looking at the sort of landscape strategy as well, we've got that main area of open space to the north. So it's children's equipped play space, informal open space, and a food growing area being proposed. So the food growing area in this case is the orchard. Children's play space indicatively shown just here. We've got some detention basins, detention basins for the surface water management scheme. Existing woodland being retained, and then the existing tree line that runs through the site where the car boot sale currently takes place in this area, continues all the way through to the southern boundary. Landscape bunds to provide the noise attenuation on the eastern boundary, and then some green infrastructure along the southern boundary to act as a buffer between the site and the properties to the south, and also the Bure Valley pathway as well. As the report says, there's a small number of trees that need removing to facilitate the development, but when I was counting the number of trees on this strategy, I stopped at 100. So there's a sort of substantial over-provision of compensation, I suppose. So I'm just going to plot the route that we're going to walk around the site. So I start off in the bottom left-hand corner, the southwest corner, and then the photos are taken at various points in a reverse C shape, all the way around to Agle Gardens, and then I take a few further up Borough Road. So as I say, reverse C, and I'll try and explain it as best as I can as we go through them. So this photo is taken from the Bure Valley Path in the southwest section of the site. You can see a nice panorama there. You can see the development to the left, bungalows on Rippingall Road, two-storey properties on Agle Gardens, and then in the distance you've got the David Wilson Homes development, and another reference point is the BP garage and the Starbucks in that far northeastern corner. And that tree line roughly follows, beyond that is where the A140 is. Again, for reference, in terms of the low boundary treatments on Rippingall Road, and just to reiterate the point that single-storey properties are being proposed along that side of the development to relate well to those existing bungalows. Agle Gardens and their boundary treatments, some concerns were raised about that, and I provided some further information on the agent's and the applicant's position on that in the update sheet. A bit further along on the eastern side of the proposed school site, again sort of looking across the site towards the north, Agle Gardens just here. And then looking down the Bure Valley Path towards the Bure Valley railway station on the left-hand side and towards the A140 on the right. And the purpose of this was to show that there is quite a distance between the site boundary denoted by that post and wire fence and the properties opposite. The site is not particularly visible from long-distance views. This was taken a short distance from the south on the footpath that goes alongside the A140. Just the curvature of the A140 and boundary treatments along fields and roads means that it's not particularly visible until you're quite close up to it. And so I then crossed the road and went further down the Bure Valley Path. And if you take this property as your reference point, this is a chalet bungalow on Bure Valley Lane, and the houses are probably just going to be somewhere between the height of that and the height of this house as well. So they're going to, even in winter as a worst case scenario, they're going to be relatively well screened from longer distance. Just go back, just go through some of the annotations here. Got a crossing, a toucan crossing going across the A140 as the annotation shows, and then a footpath on the right hand side of the A140 is going to connect from the path through to the Bure Valley Lane, which in turn connects to the road network to the north that you can access from the roundabout. And this section of road is also proposed to be reduced to a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit from its current. And just here's a drawing to confirm what's being proposed. So widening of the footpath to 3 metres, provision of the crossing from one side of the Bure Valley Path to the other, and then that 3-metre footway just to connect the road, Bure Valley Lane, that goes in that direction. So in the far southeast corner of the site, just looking diagonally across it, so we're standing roughly where the footpath connection in the southeast corner is going to be. Landscape bund, 2 metres high, with a fence on top for the noise attenuation, is going to run along all the way up. And the path is pretty wide already, but it's a little uneven, so there are sections of it that do need widening to 3 metres to accommodate cyclists and pedestrians and other wheeled users. So here I'm standing just at the junction of Bure Valley Lane, which I think is a closed junction, judging by the curb, looking across the site from the east. Quite open at present, and views will be closed off once that bund goes in. However, that is necessary and as required by the allocation to provide noise attenuation measures. And that bund will continue behind these trees up until about in between these two signs here, the pedestrian sign and the 30-mile-an-hour sign. But nevertheless, it is relatively well screened from this vantage point, and this presents the worst case scenario at present, and screening will be further enhanced by the planting that takes place. We've got a Grade 2 listed building. You can see through the trees about 70 metres to the east, and we're bound to consider the impact on the heritage asset under the Planning Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act. the relationship of that building, in my mind, is more with the countryside and the land to the east of the A140 as opposed to the development. But nevertheless, the screening provided by those evergreen trees assists in preserving its setting and reducing the impact of the development on its setting. So I'm satisfied that the setting and its special features will be preserved and relatively unaffected by this development. So now I've come off the roundabout, so you're travelling up the A140, you've taken a left as you're travelling north, and we're now standing just outside Heatcraft. So you've just gone past the BP garage. Heatcraft is a commercial premises just next to that, and some highways improvements are required here. So in this picture, we're getting the extension of the 20-mile-an-hour zone from further up Borough Road to just about where that junction is here. Got a new bus shelter being provided at the bus stop to mirror the one on the left-hand side of the road. And elsewhere, got the path here being widened to 3 metres, 1.8 metre wide refuge island being provided in the middle of the road here. And because the road needs to be widened as required by the allocation, it's just going to be pushed further to the right of the screen and the footpath aligned to accommodate that as well. So I've turned up on site looking for the car boot sale and it's not there. Instead I'm met with this. So here's an image of the site, and I'm just panning from left to right. So here's those trees on the left where the roundabout is. And that tree line just here is the one that you can if you just follow the cursor there, that's the tree line there. So you can see levels are slightly flatter in this part of the site. You can see development to the north, and this is just sort of kind of reiterating the point that I'm trying to make, that the site is fairly well contained within the wider landscape and its impact is going to be pretty limited. Further along Borough Road, got the footpath that's going to be provided all along here to connect into the existing footpath outside Eagle Gardens. And then for completeness, another photo. So the open space, probably about where that vehicle is there, and we'll loop around and incorporate this area of woodland. So looking at some street scene images of the open market houses, some thought has been given to the use of materials rather than somebody having a palette of materials and then just flicking them and splatting them and seeing where they land. So there is some cohesion to the layout of the site and also the use of materials. Where you have the use of render, for example, that tends to punctuate corners, and the same with the use of buff bricks. So here we have 2 rendered properties either side of the open space, that finger of open space that runs diagonally through the site to the southeast corner. Ooh. Just go up one. And then I may need to try and make this smaller. No, it's not going to work. On the left, on the bottom, we've got the affordable units, which are predominantly in red brick, and they will be along the southern bound, in the southeast corner on the southern boundary of the property. And again, to my mind, fairly local in there, the use of red brick and pan tiles. And then as we look at the affordable units, we've got a mixture of properties here: bungalows, 2-bed properties, 3-bed properties, and a 4-bed property in the bottom right-hand corner. And we've got some of the other affordable housing units. That's smaller. Ooh. There you go. I'm going to give up some of the technical know-how now. So the 3-storey block will be is in this position on the corner at the interface of the school site and the open space. And the 2-storey block, we've got the single-storey element on the left-hand side, 2-storey block of affordable housing for the remainder. So in design terms, the Senior Heritage and Design Officer hasn't objected to the application. He's satisfied with the information that's been submitted. And so, again, in design and layout terms, the development is acceptable. Now going to look at a bit at impact on residential amenity. So in distances, we've got about 50 metres from the rear of this block here to the rear of the properties on Borough Road, and distances vary elsewhere. However, we've got no bedroom windows, for example, at first floor level overlooking these properties. In the main, they sit side on, as you can see. And where we have this property here, there are some windows in the first floor side elevation, but this is the parking area at this property on Eagle Gardens. So I don't, in terms of overlooking of any private garden areas, I don't think we could justify raising concerns on those grounds. In terms of the distances here, we're looking at about 25 metres from the properties on, I'll come back to that slide I just flicked by, we've 25 metres from these properties here to the properties to the south on the other side of the Bure Valley Railway, which is considered to be adequate. And then I also make reference to the relationship between the properties in the far southwest corner of the development and those on Station Road. So if we look at, these are a pair of semi-detached houses, so the back gardens are to the left and to the front is the parking area in their front gardens, and the same for the properties opposite that. Got first floor windows here, they will face the side and front of this property here. So there'll be no direct overlooking of the most private part of their garden area of these properties. And similarly, no windows are being proposed for that side elevation in the direction of the properties on Rippingall Road. So there's a satisfactory relationship there. Properties will be visible, but it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be significantly harmful to amenity. And then in terms of some of the highway works, along Borough Road next to Eagle Gardens, we've got a new crossing that's being proposed through the site in the northwest corner. This tactile curbing here will be moved to where the yellow arrow is. And this will be in the 20-mile-an-hour zone as well. In terms of existing visibility, I'm standing on the edge of where the crossing point is going to be there, looking right on the right-hand side and left on the left-hand side. So obviously that's going to be cut back to improve visibility as well. And highways in the round are accepting of the proposals that have been put forward as part of the application. Tree matters. We've got that path is going to be of no dig construction. So if no dig construction, what does that mean? If you can imagine, in very crude terms, a beer crate, the bottom of the beer crate, and that kind of hexagonal pattern that it has, that is laid on top of the ground when the ground is evened and it's kind of filled in. So no digging takes place. And things like air spades are used and vacuums to suck or push, air is used to suck or push the soil away, rather than, again, getting hand tools in or machinery in to sort of shear through the roots of the trees. These trees are protected on the right-hand side. Our own tree conservation and ecology manager has considered this and considers it to be an acceptable solution to ensure the future amenity of those trees. And then further up the road, about 140 metres to the west of that footpath that we've just looked at, it's proposed to introduce a traffic calming measure at around about where this post is, possibly a bit nearer, but around about where this post is. So it's going to be the curb on the right-hand side of the road is going to be coming out, and traffic will need to give way to oncoming traffic. And elsewhere, given that the likelihood of more people using the Bure Valley path as a result of this development is very high, people may also wish to access the Marriott's Way. So we have the site just where the cursor is, got the Bure Valley path, which goes through to the Bure Valley railway station, hang a left, go past Tesco's, and then you can join the Marriott's Way as it starts at this point. And so the access isn't super at the moment, it's doable, but it's not super, and so now we're just looking to provide a better uncontrolled crossing across Norwich Road just there. In terms of flood risk, the site is at varying risk of surface water flooding. It's not at risk from fluvial flooding, so from rivers, and and as part of the drainage solution, we've got the attenuation lagoons within the open space, and then as a result of the development, this finger of surface water flood risk to the south will disappear given the drainage works that are going to take place. We've had the LLFA have considered the application and subject to the use of conditions have not objected. And it also seems like a decent time for me to talk about the local infrastructure of the town, since we're talking about flood risk. Concerns have been raised about the doctor's surgery, for example, not having the capacity to deal with additional patients that this application will create demand for. Through the ICB, £204,000 is going to be secured that can be used at either surgery within the town. That's the Market Surgery and the Reefham and Aylsham Surgery on Hungate Street. Market Surgery is next to Tesco. The developer is willing to pay that, and in addition to the funds that are being secured from the Norfolk Homes site that you considered in November, you're looking at just shy of about £560,000 that can be used at either surgery. So the development is washing its own face in that respect. Elsewhere, we've got the school site being provided as well, which in time will be transferred to the County Council to submit its own planning application for a new primary school, and that will obviously aid education provision in the town. SIL payments as well can be used towards education and libraries, and the County Council can use those to perhaps improve provision of education in other catchments or within Aylsham itself in the meantime. There's also a neighbourhood plan within Aylsham, so that's a good thing for the town in the sense that they're going to see 25% of all SIL receipts. That's not going to be a small amount of money. Local finance considerations are a consideration. So I said £200,000 in my report. I think I probably undercooked it. I think it's more likely to be about £350,000 that the town council can use on infrastructure projects that it deems to be suitable within the town. So that could be, I don't know, I'm going to maybe steal some of the town council's thunder here, but if they wanted to, they could use it on improving sports provision within the town, skate park. They could also use the money that would come from the open space commuted some on formal provision as well, but I'm sure it's got a list of projects that it could spend the money on if it wanted. So after all of that, we're at the end. So to summarise a couple of key considerations, the site is allocated by the GNLP. Application is in accordance with that allocation, so the principle of development is acceptable. In all other respects, the application is acceptable. It's acceptable in terms of its design, its layout, impact on residential amenity, flood risk being mitigated adequately, highway safety measures being proposed, and ecology, and also the contributions towards the local infrastructure that are being made. In light of all of that, and subject to matters relating to nutrient neutrality being sorted out, and the Section 106 being drafted to secure things like affordable housing and payment of monies, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Glenn. Does the committee have anything they wish clarified by the officer? Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Glenn. I think it's a really great site and there's lots of benefits about this site. Something that has concerned me, though, is the capacity of the Aylsham Water Recycling Centre. I note the comments from Burr and Tuttington Parish Council that Anglian Water are pumping sewage into the river, which then goes downstream towards my ward of Coltershall, and there are great concerns about water quality. And I know on a previous site at Norfolk Homes, which we decided in November, some of the housing wasn't going to come on stream until Anglian Water had upgraded their facility by 2030. So I don't know what the phasing for this will be, but I think that's something the committee should consider. Another thing is the Bure Valley Railway and Path. What is the boundary treatment going to be along that? Because I can see, I mean, that's within the ownership of Broadland District Council, and the Bure Valley Railway company leases the railway from us. But the council is responsible for the boundary treatments and that wire fence we can see, and there's quite a strong fence between the path and the railway itself, but I'm concerned if there are houses at the back and children are playing around there, we need a decent boundary to stop children heading towards the railway line, because I know it's only a light railway, but it's the same governance on that as a full-scale railway. So I think that's something as a council we need to really think about. At the Norfolk Homes, when the committee heard the Norfolk Homes development, we had a doctor here from the market surgery saying money is all very well for provision of extra medical spaces, but there isn't actually much space in either of these surgeries for actual expansion. So that is something I'm also concerned about as well. Thank you.
Glenn, would you like to respond?
Ooh, I'll do my best to try and remember all of that. Yeah, so water, the phasing of the Norfolk Homes one was largely related to their nutrient neutrality solution. So they could get so far, and then they needed to do something else for their nutrient neutrality in order to finish the development as well. So that was kind of what that was for. I appreciate what you say about the capacity of the water recycling centre or the wastewater treatment works. Anglian Water have said to us that they consider the development, well, the consultation response is in the report. They will do what they need to do to deal with sewage flows from the site, and we have to have confidence in that as well. Boundary treatments, we've got a condition relating to landscaping and boundary treatments to be submitted for approval. I think it's really useful what you've just said, because if members vote to approve this application, we can bear that in mind come the submission of details on boundary treatments and landscaping for the site. So I appreciate you raising that, and thank you. Healthcare, I've checked my records, and we've never had any contact that I've found from either of the doctor's surgeries within the town about pre-application advice, for example, or letters or applications. So we're open to discussion to consider solutions that could take place at either surgery. But you know, despite what was said at the meeting in November, I've not found any record of anybody saying no to anything.
Yeah.
One of the doctors from the market surgery attended the planning application when we discussed the Norfolk Homes site, and she spoke on the matter, and she said money wasn't really enough because they were struggling with planning permission to extend the market surgery, and she was, because they are within the confines of their boundary, there isn't that much space to actually expand on their current site or on at the other doctors, if you want to look back at that. So I'll just ask the committee to consider that when we're determining the application.
Could I just come in quickly there, that's okay, and just to double check, because I think we were going to have the practice manager from the market surgery here today speaking. Yeah. So the practice manager is here and will be speaking, so we can hear from them. I'm going to say something that might contradict it, but it's in writing in 4.26 of our report on page 26, where it says, and this is the response from the market surgery, that we have reached our maximum capacity for space and clinicians. However, we are fortunate that our building has the potential for expansion. So whilst we heard from the doctor last time, I think it's important for us to hear from the practice manager, because what we have in writing is that there is the space to do that. I am just going to pick up, sorry to continue my ramble on here, but I'm just going to pick up on the wastewater treatment as well, because the point was made in the response from Burren-Tuttingham, the response from Anglian Water as of December 23, and I'm going to read it out verbatim, is that they say the foul drainage from the development is in the catchment of the Elsham Water Recycling Centre, which currently does not have capacity to treat the flows of the development site. Anglian Water are obligated to accept the foul flows from the development with the benefit of planning consent, and would therefore take the necessary steps to ensure that there's sufficient treatment capacity should the planning authority grant planning permission. So from my perspective, we've got a response from Anglian Water. If anything changes with that, then we will come back to you all, we will look at that. But at the moment, we have that response from Anglian Water that says that they can deal with it through their programme of works that they're going to do.
Ken, you had a question.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Elsham Town Council made reference to it, and there was strong reference to it under the general consultations, particularly page 29, consultation 2, from item 430, July 2024. The plans make no mention of solar electricity generation on these homes. This development should make provision for PV electricity generation to ensure its relevance in this time of climate change. There is a need to turn any available roof into a source of electricity. Has the officer any comments on this at all? Was this mentioned? And do we not, perhaps as a planning committee now, accept that this is an important point that has got to be raised, particularly recently with the government's comments on changes to planning?
Yeah, it was raised with the developer at the time that comment was made, as part of a general discussion at the time about consultation responses that were received. Their approach tends to be along the lines of securing energy efficiencies through what they call a fabric first approach. So they embed the energy efficiency within the construction of the building rather than add items to it. So they've got provision for air source heat pumps as well, which are also a low carbon renewable form of energy. So it's one of a number of options that are available for any developer to take, whether that's air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, fabric first approach, solar panels, whatever it might be. In this case, the developer has chosen the fabric first approach alongside air source heat pumps to secure an energy efficient development.
Yes, I just wonder if, as a planning committee, we should bear in mind the importance of that has been made about availability and the solar panels. I take your point.
No, I do agree with you, Ken. I think, at least with social housing, we should have solar panels on, and I think we do need to go down that approach. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to be the slightly bad news. Don't get me wrong, we would all encourage the use of all the renewable energy types that we could do. Glenn makes a very good point. Fabric first, air source heat pumps, that's getting a long way to it. We can't force the developer to put solar panels on their development. They will understandably default to the building regulations. The building regulations don't require them to do that. If we had a planning policy, we don't. If we had a planning policy that required to put solar panels on all of the roofs, then we could do, but we don't. So the default will be to the requirements of the Greater Norwich Local Plan. Policy 2 requires a certain amount of development through renewable energy source provision. They're doing that already. The building regs require them to build to certain standards. That doesn't include solar panels in this instance. So from a planning perspective, I would encourage you not to do that, because we won't be able to get that through, and the developer would be able to appeal against that as a condition if we put that on.
But hopefully
We do have the applicant coming later, so you can ask that question. We do have the applicant coming later, if you wish to ask again. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions for the officer? Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just explain to me, you've mentioned the air quality assessment, but you mentioned it at the front. Can you just explain to me how we've got to a satisfactory solution for that? Because it was a little confusing, I won't lie. So can you just explain the logic a little bit? Obviously the air pollution's coming from the road and the businesses around, perhaps, but how has it now got to a level where the pollution isn't going to be an issue?
It was more about the level of information that was submitted more than any particular solution being advanced. as the environmental quality officer's comment set out, there is a requirement for PM 2.5s or micro particulates to not exceed a certain level by 2040. And so what he was looking for was assurance that they wouldn't exceed that level within that time frame. That information was eventually forthcoming through some more modelling and the digging in of more information, drilling into existing data to provide that information. That information has been provided. Environmental Quality Officer is now happy with that information. So, like I said, no particular mitigations, but it was more about the information being provided.
So,
Thank you.
So is this something that's going to go forward for every, just as a general interest, for every planning application? Do we need to be considering air quality assessments for everything? Because it's the first time that I think I've noticed that this has been an issue.
We're going to be seeing more of it, that's for sure. The government has introduced some interim guidance pending final guidance on achieving those legal targets that are set out in the report. So yeah, I think you're going to be seeing, and we're going to be seeing more air quality assessments as well.
Just to add to that, it will obviously depend on where it is. The scheme we have here is next to a relatively main road, so there's more potential for the particulates to be increased, and therefore potential for air quality to be worsened. But the developer's shown us everything we need to do to be satisfied. But take Glenn's point, yes, there will be more, but it won't mean it's on every application.
Okay, thank you. Peter, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Paul's comments did cover my query in general. There was one observation I did make, or two actually. First off, I applaud the 33% affordable homes, which I think is excellent. And it's a shame that we can't see this in all new developments. Also, there's on one of the slides, I saw some what looked like low voltage power cables going across the site. Are they likely to be moved? Thank you, Glenn.
I think it's likely they'll probably end up underground, but the developer will need to deal with that through UK Power Networks or whatever they might be called now.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll go to public speaking. The first public speaking is the Chair of the Parish Council, is Kay Montadon. Kay, would you like to come to the front, please?
Thank you, Chair.
You have 5 minutes, Kay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn, for your presentation. And I would like to say that the council very much welcomes both the money for healthcare in the town that's being put forward and also the A140 crossing. We're really, really pleased with that. We're also very pleased with the very late in the day, but lovely to see the provision for us to be able to provide sports facilities, for enhanced sports facilities for children and young people. And we may indeed want to put that towards the skate park in the future, which needs to be replaced. We also have lots of other SIL projects in the offing. A couple of things that we're not very happy about: solar panels. Why are there none? Energy efficiency is not renewable energy. We need to be able to provide the opportunity for generating on every surface that we possibly can, and having storage as well. Norwich Road is now going to have solar panels. We heard from them last November. Why are Hopkins Homes determined to be the Luddite developer in Aylsham? It seems a shame. The inspectorate modifications that were put forward require a pedestrian crossing on Borough Road. We commissioned with the county a feasibility study on crossings on the road, and they very much came forward with the summary that a zebra crossing is the safest option. We have lots of children crossing that road to get to the recreation ground and also to get to school. We very much welcome the 20-mile-an-hour zone, but in our own SAM monitoring of our other zone, 55 to 59% of cars exceed the 20-mile-an-hour limit very much, and the maximum that we have recorded is 75 miles per hour. So I would very much wish that we had a zebra crossing to help the young people get across the road, and the old people and the dog walkers to get to the wreck, because there will be more cars. We've got 242 homes, that's probably about 400 more cars. So there will be more traffic on that road. Please, let's not run the risk of a speeding collision with a child or an old person walking their dog. Another point as well is sustainable transport. There is a bus stop outside the development, but there are 5 buses a day taking people into Norwich. On the A140, there are 25 buses passing a day on the X40 service. We would very much require and request, please, to have a bus stop. Is there something that can be added into this Section 106 requirements? Because it is literally just there. So the people from the new development, the residents, would be able to then hop on those services into Cromer or into Norwich without having to get into their cars. Come on, this is 2025. Let's help people to be a bit more sustainable in their transport, choices. And on the air quality, we still see that the air quality will not comply with the latest standards straight away. So I'm a little bemused as to how we've managed to, I don't know, massage the data is probably a bit strong, but how we've managed to change the data now to show that actually we're not going to be asphyxiating our residents. And the new traffic calming on Borough Road, I would like to know how that might possibly affect the buses, because the reason there are only 5 buses a day up Borough Road is because they get stuck. And if we're going to have a traffic calming measure, which is fantastic, but how is that going to affect even those 5 buses? And when we have roadworks and when there are events in the market square, we have to close off bus access and they go up Borough Road instead, and that's very often when they get stuck. So could we have a little bit more of a holistic view, please, of the impact on the transport and the safety of our residents from this development? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any members of the committee have anything they wish to clarify from the speaker? No? Okay. Thank you, Kay. We have Fiona Hinton, please, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you. Fiona, you'd like to introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes as well when you start.
Technology. Okay. Hi, I'm Fiona Hinton. I'm the business manager of the Market Surgery in Aylsham. And I'm pleased to see that in the latest report that there is money available for general practice, because that's our concern, the increased number of patients to our facilities, because we do need to increase the size of our facilities if we have to have more patients. That's essentially it. Because initially in the reports, initially in the reports it was arguing about whether there was going to be any money available, and the most recent report that I've seen says there will be money available and how much it is. So that's good news for us guys.
Yeah, I think the officer said 468,000 between the 2 surgeries. Is that correct?
Yeah, obviously more money would be great, because planning or building is not a cheap thing, but any money is good money.
That was being calculated by the NHS, not by us or the developer.
Yeah, and I've spoken to the ICB who hold the money about how we will use that money.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair. Have you done any work at all to establish how much money it would cost to increase the surgery or surgeries to the appropriate size to handle both this site and the Norwich Road site?
Very, very basic calculations at the moment, because our site is constrained just because of where we physically are on the site. So we have availability at the back of our site, which is currently a garden, but we could only put a prefabricated unit in there because there's no access either side of our building to get a dumper truck, concrete mixer, anything down the side. So we'd have to crane something over the top that was pre-built and put into the back. And we've got a rough estimate for how much that would be. The better solution would be building at the front of our building, but that would be building on car park spaces. And I'm not sure whether that will go through planning or not. We've had very basic conversations at the moment as to how you physically make the building bigger.
I think it's best for you to have private conversations with planning, what the possibilities are in the future. Yeah, thank you. Joe.
Thank you, Fiona. Yes, it was Dr. Ahmed, I think, from your surgery that came to speak to us on the 6th of November on the Norfolk Home site. So are you now confident that if you have another 480,000 that you will be able to cope with the capacity? Because there was a large number of homes coming with the Norfolk Home site, and there was an assisted living place with about 90 bedrooms in it as well. And here we see another 224 homes coming forward. Are you confident that that money will be enough? And if this site is, passes through planning, I would like to see that money come sort of fairly up front so we can look at infrastructure first and help the market surgery to do the expansion before the population of Aylsham explodes. Thank you.
As I understand it, the monies will go into one pot, and there's obviously two surgeries that are separate from each other in Aylsham, and both of us would have to bid for that money if we wanted it. I understand the other surgery would also need it because they would expect a patient increase. I'm not sure it will cover, even the basic conversations that we've had, it would cover all of that amount, but that's something that we would have to sort out. We have very we need help with.
I'd like to call Jonathan Lieberman, please. Again, you have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Jonathan Lieberman, Head of Planning at Hopkins Homes. I'm joined by James Allflat, who's a partner at Bidwells, who are the planning consultants. As you'll be aware, the site is allocated in the adopted Greater Norwich local plan, and we started discussing the site with the council back in 2020. And since then, we've worked very closely with officers to progress a scheme that accords with the various site-specific policy requirements. I'd like to say a few words about the development proposal, which we consider will deliver a number of tangible benefits to the town. This includes much needed private and affordable housing, land for a new primary school, new public open space, highway improvements and Section 106 civil contributions towards local infrastructure. We submitted the application in September 2023 following extensive pre-application engagement with the council and the local community. And since submission, we've worked positively with your officers and stakeholders to address the various comments raised. Is that better? Okay, so just going through some of the key changes that we've made to the scheme since submission. We've refined the materials and detailed design of the houses and apartments within the character areas in response to the urban design officer's comments. We've relocated the proposed 3-storey apartment from the eastern boundary. We've made changes to the affordable housing mix in response to the housing officer comments, and we've made updates to the proposed landscape scheme. And as we went through earlier, we've made making a number of off-site highway works in response to county council comments. And that includes the new traffic calming. Apologies for that. So the development would provide a total of 242 new houses and bungalows ranging. Unfortunately. Can you hear me okay? I'll try and shout. So I was just saying that there'll be a range of dwellings from 1 to 4 bedrooms to help address housing need. All dwellings will meet nationally described space standards, with over 20% of dwellings meeting the M42 accessibility standards. We are including air source heat pumps to all the dwellings, and EV car charging will be provided in line with the latest building regulation requirements. The application includes land for a new primary school equating to 2 hectares inside in accordance with the local plan policy. Whilst the scheme was submitted prior to the mandatory requirement of achieving 10% BNG, we have worked with our ecologists and landscape designers to still deliver a net gain on site. And although the site is affected by nutrient neutrality, we are in advanced discussions with mitigation providers who have confirmed that credits will be available to purchase shortly, and subject to receiving support today, we would look to commence development in the autumn of this year so that the first homes will be ready for occupation by the summer of 2026. The delivery of this allocated site would therefore help boost the council's housing land supply, whilst also providing a number of benefits to the local community, including land for a new primary school and new areas of publicly accessible open space. So in summary, we're pleased that the scheme comes before you with a positive officer recommendation, and we hope that you are in a position to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
I wondered if you had any comments on the solar panels, Jamie.
No, thanks for that. And I think Mr. Beaumont and Mr. Burgess have covered that quite comprehensively. There are a number of options available to us to meet the the policy requirements in relation to energy efficiency. And our preference currently is air source heat pumps and the fabric first approach. We know what's been said today, but we would always allow PVs on our properties. We wouldn't obviously prevent any customer from installing their own, and we do often get requests. So just to reassure you that it's more aesthetics in terms of why we prefer air source heat pumps and fabric first, but that's not to say that a customer wouldn't put their own on.
Maybe that's something you can consider for the future.
Yeah.
So I do think with social housing at least there should be solar panels on the roof. And I think the committee will agree with me. Yeah.
No, we've heard what's been said today, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just going back to the comments of Kay from Aylsham Town Council. During COVID, the council did lots of looking at sort of public realm improvements within Aylsham Town Centre. And one of the problems was buses going into the centre of Aylsham really struggle to turn because they go through the Market Square and then there's a very sharp turn onto Red Lion Street, and Red Lion Street itself is very narrow. And taking on board what Kay said, I wonder as a planning committee whether we could just think about moving the traffic calming on Bure Road, because buses will really struggle with that. And I think the town council is quite right. We do need a bus stop on the A140 because buses can head up the A140 unimpeded by sort of width restrictions, and that would be very, very sensible. And also, she mentioned maybe a zebra crossing on Bure Road. John, would you consider making some amendments to the, I think it's a 106 agreement, to change the traffic calming measures and provide a bus stop on the A140? Just because we've got to think, we're having huge numbers of people move into Aylsham, and the accessibility to public transport, especially for older people, is absolute, and children, is key. And I actually think, now Kay has spoken, we ought to really think about whether that traffic calming on Bure Road is the best use of our money, and whether putting better public transport links in would be very wise. Thank you, John.
No, thanks for the question and comments. I think, as I mentioned in the speech, we started discussions on this site back in 2020. It has been a very extensive process that we've gone through with both the district and the county council, and that has involved a lot of discussions with highways in terms of what appropriate off-site works are in terms of the highway improvements. I think Mr. Beaumont went through in detail what we've agreed to date, and to a large degree we are guided by highways as to what they consider is necessary for this development to be acceptable, and that is what we currently are planning. Note what's been said, and we are guided to a large degree by the Highway Authority in that respect. the section 278 details are referenced in, will be referenced in the conditions, and it's our intention that we would implement as the current scheme shows. However, off-site works, there is discussion, but currently as we sit, we would be looking to implement as per the plans you've seen. I think a point was made about still funding being available, and that can be used for improvements to infrastructure as well. So I think we've got to look at what is reasonably related to this scheme, but what potential money could be used to provide a wider benefit, and that might be something that the Town Council might want to explore with the Highway Authority in terms of those other works.
Councillor Coppeston, you're looking at me like you want me
I'm
to say
looking at you as
something.
well, wondering if there's some discussion
I
between
think-
yourselves
Well,
and the parish council about a bus stop.
what I was largely going to reiterate what Mr. Lieberman just said about we're in the realms of what's necessary to make the development acceptable. The Highway Authority is both the Highway Authority and the Transport Authority, and by way of explanation, you get a case officer doesn't consider this application in splendid isolation. The application is considered in what they call their development team, so they pull in different people from different parts of the Highway Authority and the Transport Authority and formulate their response from there. So if they've not considered this, the provision of a bus stop on the A140 to be acceptable, to make the development acceptable, we have to think very carefully about how hard we want to push that. Are we going to, if it's not necessary to make the development acceptable, ultimately are we going to refuse the application? And I think the answer to that is no. So I appreciate
no, but not to refuse the application, but to have some consideration between policy and common sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to add quickly, if that's okay. As Glenn says, whilst they won't have done it in isolation from other developments, they also will have spoken to the bus companies as well. That's what the County Council Highways team do. They have a part of their own highways team that has regular correspondence and discussions with the bus companies. I would suspect, not involved in those discussions, but I would suspect if there was a need for a bus stop on there, the County Council would have been pushing for one to be on there.
Maybe that's something you can take up with your county council representatives. No further questions. We'll go to discussion. Thank you very much. Oh, can I just mention one point? The play area. We have signed up as a council to provide accessible play equipment, and I do hope you'll consider that when you do the play equipment.
Yeah, no, thanks. That is something, as a business, as a company, we're keen to explore those opportunities, and on other sites, yes, certainly, it's in terms of the specific design, we do cater for all abilities. So, yeah, it is something that we can discuss further with the council as part of the Section 106 discussions.
Right, who would like to start? Joe.
I think actually the public transport matter has only come out because we've heard from the lady from the Town Council, Kay. I think when I looked at this before reading all the papers, I didn't realise the implication of putting traffic calming onto Bure Road. And I know from doing work during COVID on public realm improvements, in the possible public realm improvements during COVID, that buses really struggle to get into the centre of Aylsham, and the route out through Bure Road, because there's a great big estate on the other side of the road as well, quite a new estate. I don't know who built that, on the other side of the recreation ground. So we've had huge population growth within Aylsham, and I'm really concerned that that matter can't be sorted out. And I really take on board what Kay has said. To have a bus stop on the A140 would be so beneficial, and it would reduce people air quality, I believe. So I am very concerned about that, and I don't seem to see that there is an easy way forward on this. I'm also concerned about the Anglian Water problem that we've got, because I know the Norfolk Home site was going to phase their development, and not build through until after 2030, until the Aylsham water treatment plant had been upgraded. But, you know, as John has said, some of these homes on this site are going to be delivered by summer 26. So I've got a couple of concerns with this. Overall, it's a brilliant site, obviously. Great numbers of affordable homes, and yes, what a bonus to have money to upgrade the market surgery and the other surgery and the primary school. But on balance, there is a few bits and pieces that I am quite concerned about, and I'm just wondering whether this should be deferred slightly until this can be sorted out, or whether we could ask the officer to make sure that these things are addressed. Thank you, Chair.
I wouldn't agree to a deferment. I think there are things to iron out, but I think they can be done with planning officers and the applicant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Well, can I agree with Joe? I think there are three main issues that really, the site is really good, and there's been a lot of work. You can tell there's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of communication between planning and Hopkins, and it's a great site. There's a lot of good things about it. Particularly like the 30% affordable homes, which is brilliant. I'd love if it had more solar panels, because I think that would be really forward thinking of the company, and to put them on affordable homes would be really make a good statement. But there are three issues. I think the doctor's surgery worries me, because I think there's the potential there for these houses to be built and no increases in doctor's appointments. And I think that's already a difficult issue for lots of towns, and that's only going to make it worse. So I'm worried that we're going to give planning permission to something they're going to be building in September, and there's going to be an issue there that is going to come to fruition. I think the bus stop on the A140 makes so much more sense. I think you should just move the one that's on Burr Road and put it on the A140, because having 5 buses versus 20 is a bit of a no-brainer. It's got to improve connectivity, and we've got to do as much as we can in the council to promote people taking the bus, especially on price, to get everywhere. So that makes a lot of sense. The zebra crossing on Burr Road makes perfect sense as well. Oh, I forgot the other one. Excuse me. What was the other one you were talking about? Oh, the water treatment works. That I totally agree with Joe. I think that could also be another issue, and I don't know if there's anything we can do to limit the number of houses they're built until the sewer works are complete, or is there any planning condition we can put on to any of those three? You know, I don't know what our options are, so I look for guidance. But they're the three things that I'm concerned with, and I agree with Joe. I think we should defer it a little bit until they're sorted out.
I think with the water quality, we have to go with what our consultee has said to us, and we have to take that verbatim. Medical centre, there's a possibility of talks with planning, how they can extend. The bus stop, I do agree with you, it should be moved to the A140. Maybe we can have some conversations about that with planning and with highways, I don't know. And maybe the crossing on Burr Road, maybe we can have discussions about that as well. But I don't see them reasons to defer this from this week.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chair. This isn't a reason, although I previously said I thought maybe this should be deferred. I don't think this is a reason to defer, and I think you're quite right. We've expressed our concerns about Anglian Water and their capacity, but this is also, they have said that they can take the capacity, and we have raised our concerns. And I think, you know, we've heard from Glenn and Ben on those matters, and I think we've got to accept that as a committee. But I think I don't think we can actually do anything about solar panels. I mean, these can be retrofitted and they shouldn't be our main concern. But I think if the officers are confident that they could liaise with Kay at the Town Council just to make sure that our public transport system within the town isn't impeded by putting that traffic calming measure on Burr Road. I think that's really important. And if we could maybe change that traffic calming and maybe add the pedestrian crossing. And I'm not up for moving the bus stop on Burr Road. I would like to see, as Kay has said, I'd like an additional bus stop on the A140 if possible. Thank you, Chair.
So I'm just going to come in, thanks Chair, because I think I'm not preempting what the decision by members will be today, but we have a recommendation in place that I think that we would have to look to slightly change if members wanted me to take that away. I'm going to propose what I think it should be changed to, and then you tell me whether you think that's okay with you or not. So at the moment, I'm going to read out what we've got, and then I'm going to say what I think we should have. At the moment, we've got subject to no adverse comments being received from the ecologist and biodiversity officer, which we've covered, so I would take that out straight away anyway, and matters relating to nutrient neutrality being satisfactorily resolved, to authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to conditions and the completion of Section 106 agreement. What I'm proposing we change it to, I'll say in a second, but I'm just going to say something first. I am going to reiterate what Glenn and Mr. Merton have said. We have had a response from the Highways Authority. They have made their comments on the transport measures that are being put in place. But what I'm going to suggest is that we go back and have another conversation with them in light of the discussion that's happened today. But I just want to make it clear to members that it might still come back that they think this is the right thing to do still. So just want to make that clear. So I suppose what I'm suggesting the recommendation is that subject to no adverse comments being received, I'm going to change that, subject to a further discussion being had with North County Council Highways Authority. We probably need to put some other wording in there, and matters relating to nutrient neutrality being satisfactorily resolved. To authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to conditions and the completion of the 106 agreement. Because I know that leaves it a bit open-ended, but I think what you're giving potentially the authority to do is go and have that further discussion with Highways. And it might result in what we've got, it might result in a change. But if you're comfortable with that, then I'd go with that wording.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy with the Assistant Director's comments, and I think if that could be put in place, I am happy to move that we approve the application. So I'm proposing. Thank you.
Seconder? Bibbin? Yeah. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Right, we'll go on to the next application, which is Horsford. Is it Horsford?